past all of them as well. What a move for the 48. Oh, look at this, and onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
They say enduros tend to calm things down a little bit. Well, it spiced everything up as far as championships were concerned 1 week ago. We head ourselves to 16th Street and Georgetown Road, where the halfway stage of the championship starts to bring itself into a very scenic picture at the moment. The day is simple. James booming his championship sliced in half, and the likes of Alexander Davidson and the likes of Ross McFarlane and Marley Joffe all want to go and hunt and give their chase. When it comes to World GT Championship action, it is here at Indianapolis where we find ourselves with coverage here on RaceSpotTV. My name's Jake Sperry. I've got along with me for the ride here today, Jeremy Scott. And Jeremy, we are set for what is an all-important doubleheader here today when you consider above everything else what happened 7 days ago at Road America.
Yeah, that's done and dusted for a lot of the drivers. Now they have to figure out how to go through 2 sprint races here at the world's greatest race course, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Of course, we saw how it was for the 6 hours for IMSA. Will it be any different for these drivers today?
It's technical action here, so it will mean that it will be 30 plus 1 hour that we will have in terms of racing. It's a double header of technicals, but critically, there's a 1 week break that will be jumping in between, which will mean that it will be 2 weeks to get themselves prepped for the Circuit Day 24 Heures du Mans, which will be on the horizon to kickstart the second half of the championship. But as far as it goes for a championship rundown towards the end of the season, season. I don't think there's a single place you can catch your breath. There's your World GT Championship Pro standings, and that gap down to just 24 for Alexander Davidson against James Boomey. Ross McFarlane with the victory last time out brings himself back into the title picture, as well as Marley Joffe there in fourth for Effect Simulations. Michael F. Docker is fifth with Matthias Pirhanen in sixth position. Harrison Crowther and Tom Griggs make up seventh and eighth, with Arthur Thurtle in ninth, and Martin Toth then getting 10th position in the race gear by EU Machinery. Pro-Am, though, here looks a very interesting prospect.
It really does, with Michael Gray still leading over William Guthrie, both Full Tilt Motorsport. Can't call them teammates, even though they're technically two different teams. 1 and 2, Aiden Carter, a little bit of a rough showing at the last Enduro race in third. Then Phil Samways and Eric Muska round out your top five, with Tommy Vidal, Chris Chatterton, Andy Archer, Icon Heidi Lindmo, and Dickie Simnor round out your top 10. With the AM standings, well, it's been one driver who's really been coming up as of late.
Yeah, it's been a runaway for Daniel McCauley. He's been dominating at the top. Ben Altria has been trying to follow, but that gap is now over 50 championship points. Franek Sikorsky is third, and then it's a long gap back to Jesse Payne-Wilkins in fourth. Joe Coffin is fifth in class, and Jacques Eva in 6th and 7th. Ben Bennyworth, Elliot Roberts, and then Paul Smith, who said that he really doesn't like this track today. He finds himself down there at the bottom. WSR, though, made great progress when it came to the team standings, though, Jeremy, over at Road America.
Yeah, no surprise there as we see WSR Esports. They've been really up at the front with the multiple drivers there, leading over Altitude, Frame Esports, and its Effect Simulations, Altitude by SimStickers, Racing Lab round out your top five there, with Nomad, Atomic Esports, then with DCW in 8th, 9th, Soul Peck Precision Racing. The AM standings, well, they've gone a little bit different with only 7 teams.
Yeah, but the two Full Tilt teams, Full Tilt V Motorsport ahead of Full Tilt Motorsport, puts the championship there to 25 over for them, with Series 1 Racing in third and Altitude Frame Esports Mr. Hedge in fourth position. Project 91 Academy Team, Effect Simulations Club Sport, and Boosted Motorsports, the final two, are tied on points in 6th and 7th. But there's your starting grid as they get themselves all ready. Qualifying done and dusted, and Alexander Davidson gets the better of James Boomey, who is surrounded on all sides today by WSR Esports drivers. Michael F. Docker's third, and Ross McFarlane's in fourth. Dennis Grabowski will be the nearest help in fifth position, with Martin Toth then in position number 6. Eric Muxka, then best of the Pro-Ams, will go from 7th, ahead of Matthias Pirhanen and Arthur Thurtle. Michael Gray, your championship leader, great qualifying for him. He starts 10th, with Anders Myra in 11th, and David Mendonca for Solpec then in P12. Tommy Vidal and also Phil Samways have row 7, with William Guthrie and Joey Petrick on row 8. Aiden Carter will start the Lamborghini in 9th, as it is a pole again in class for Daniel McCauley, 18th place for him. Adam Watson and Tom Griffiths round out the top 20, with Andy Archer and Elliot Roberts 21st and 22nd. You've then got Brian Loynes and Drew Fletcher on row number 12. Row 13 has Ben Altria and Patrick Falconer, with Josh Boot and Håkon Ida Lindmo then in 28th. There's Dickie Simnor in 29th. Missed action last time out, with Jacques Eva in 30th position. And looking further back again, Taylor Lane and Benjamin Gregory there in one of the Aston Martins in 32nd. Ben Bennyworth and Chris Chatterton on row 17. You've then got Joe Coffin and Nathan Healy about 2 seconds off of the pole time, with Louis Hesketh and Paul Smith in 38th. You got then Adam Hedgecock and Colin Sansom making up the top 40, as Harrison Crowther would be the first to not set a time. That includes the likes of Joe Newman and the gentleman John Roberts, making 43, looking to start around the fabled Brickyard here today. And already you can see, Jeremy, that they are eager to get up to speed in sim time, heading to click to 11 o'clock in the morning, and that means it's cold and they're looking to get a bit of a heat up.
And you know what? It's perfect conditions really for any sort of race and sim time around 11 o'clock. We're looking at 22 degrees Celsius, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, ambient temperature, 76 degrees Fahrenheit, track temp 24 degrees Celsius. And really with the wind, it's a little strong, but I think that this is going to be a fantastic race. This 30-minute sprint might get some drivers up and ready because really, let's be real here, in the sim or in real life, a win here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is always on drivers' checklists.
Yeah, this is going to be a case of a start of elbows out. Remember that turn number 1 is one of the big places where you can go get a pass. And so as you sit, as you get ready, you are hoping that that long, important launch, you are not getting jumped because it is a fairly long way down towards turn number 1. They will have to tackle this bike level chicane, a chicane that was put in then after what was the dramas of the 2005 United States Grand Prix. That was put in for the likes of the mid-2010s for everyone to get ready and for more great racing to put itself in on position. With the pace car already in, it's an early launch that is put into play then by Alexander Davidson. Gets everything he wants, and James Boomey, look at that, resolute off the start and critically shutting the door to any gap down the inside into turn number 1. Michael Evdoka then, who has been known to be aggressive, tries to put himself through, leans on the bumper, trying to find a way through. Grabowski losing out on the start as well. Great work by Martin Toth. He's up to 5th.
And no surprise there at the back. We've got a couple cars spinning already. Altry is one of them, Griffiths, Roberts. And here's what's going to be interesting throughout the race is how these drivers handle that little switchback going on to the Holman Straight as they will dive down heavy into that left-handed braking zone. That's one area that's going to be tough, but also watch out for any sort of issues. We got more problems. Lindmo involved, Coffin involved, a couple other drivers, Pennyworth also involved. We'll get a replay of that. But as I was saying, that corner back there coming off of the Holman Boulevard, also coming off of what is oval turn number 2. That's going to be an interesting zone as well.
Yeah, that was a hefty shunt into the barriers there, and that's right at the point where you've got some protection for what was the old road course around here. A lunge down the inside of the Solpec car there by, I believe, Arthur Thurtle, who's looking to try and find a way through. You've got Michael Gray sat there in 10th position with eyes on this at this moment in time, saying, you know what, I'd quite like to get myself involved. In fact, that could be Eric Moska. Big hit in the back, and there's a couple in there, and that is a big one for 3rd in the championship. That's a massive incident on the front. Everyone scatters.
Oh, not a good place for a crash to happen. Of course, we see those happen from time to time. That driver out, that is Aiden Carter's, given the meatball, and car will be into the pits. We'll see if they can get back out, but already mayhem on the first lap. And of course, we kind of expected it because there's a lot of high pressure corners here, but really out front, it's Davidson, Boomey, and Evdoka, 1, 2, 3. Another no surprise here.
No, Ross McFarlane is the driver, though, who will want to try and move back up into 3rd place if he at all can, because of the fact that he doesn't want to be dropping masses of points here in this first race. But the focus is going to be very clear from all drivers involved. How do we get this opening lap to sort with? Tommy Vidal is then looking to try and work on through, as we do have every single sense of what makes a great start to this race get itself known at this stage, knowing that they've got still a long ways to go before the end of this race is going to be signaled out. They know without any question of doubt, if you're in the mid-pack, this is a day where you can go and make points. A very technical circuit here, this one at Indianapolis. And I'm seeing so many drivers getting so close to the outside wall as they re-enter the oval banking again.
Well, that's no surprise because you're coming off the road course there, and there's still a little bit of banking, so that's going to suck you right up as you're going down that straightaway. And we've seen that from time to time with different series where that wall, it just invites you to just get closer and closer, and for some drivers, it's going to take you out. We see the 20 of Anders Meyer trying to catch up to Eric Mushka. Toth has gotten around Grabowski for that 5th spot. Here comes Meyer to the inside, going to try something, not going to make anything happen. And this is going to be interesting to see how some of the drivers, they'll kind of block off any kind of pass, because there's 3 big passing zones here that we mentioned. That is one of them. So some drivers will have one eye up at the front, one eye in the mirror.
Yep, so Anders Meyer, who was a little out of position in qualifying, 11th, +2, now up into 9th place, will be thinking, I'd like to get past the leading Pro-Am. I don't want to be in a Pro-Am sandwich. I want to be battling the likes of Matthias Pirhanen, the likes of Dennis Grabowski, and of course, Martin Toth as well. And Toth looks like he's blinking about a bit. We'll take a look at this on the start. Gets very congested in the middle, and the moment you throw it 3 wide, it's very much a street circuit style turn 1 now that they have with the profile. Very tight, and you've always got to make sure you leave enough room. William Guthrie, the one the wrong way around, and look at that tap on Ben Bennyworth. Nowhere to go in that Porsche on cold tyres.
Yeah, Bennyworth out of the race from that incident. Of course, now that's another part of the coming off of Holman Boulevard that you see as the Mercedes involved in that little ta-ta-ta there. But back to turn 1, you're going from a wide entry into a narrow path through the infield road course, and Aiden Carter looks like that they just lost it coming onto the oval, and that's going to happen here if you just get one wheel off the groove. You got to try and stay on the groove the best you can, and yeah, that back end just touched that grass. It was game over. Had another car that backed into the safer barrier of what is known as Oval 1, but so far so good for that one. But Carter was just a sitting duck with nowhere to go.
Yeah, and it really is a shame for Aiden Carter. Lost the championship lead in Pro-Am, and now that big hit is going to do a massive dent to any championship aspirations against Michael Gray. Louis Hesketh looking for a place. This to get to 33rd. Then on one of the full tilt machines, great launch coming out then of turn 9, heading over through towards turn 10 and back onto the oval, banking in the short shoot run between turns 2 and 1, and gets the pass, scored complete then, making it work. We talk about this being not necessarily the biggest high-speed circuit out there, despite it being, and Paul Smith's just gone round.
Yep, and that's not going to give him any marks against this course, because he's already not a big fan of Ed Smith, able to get back underway. And that was kind of a weird area for him to just break loose. So not sure if he had some help. We'll have a replay here, but still watching this battle as well between Myra and Mushka. Here's a replay of a spin, and we're going to see this not only through the 30-minute race, but also all throughout that hour race. And watching the Paul Smith spin, and I think he got on the gas just a little bit too soon there. That back end, wanting to see what the front end's looking at.
Yeah, never ideal when that happens, and Myra finally muscles that BMW away through and up into 8th place ahead of Eric Muxka, and does so with aplomb. There has also been a change for 3rd place, as Ross McFarlane has got through on Michael Evdoka, and that now puts Ross McFarlane back in a prime position, but now 1.5 seconds off of James Boomey and Alexander Davidson at the front of the field. Now, it's more than just going out there driving fast and winning the race that's going to win you this championship, Jeremy. It's also about keeping it clean.
Yeah, you really got to keep it clean in a course like this, where a good portion of the circuit is just full of walls, not much runoff on the side. You really got to be careful as we're looking out of the side of Daniel McCauley. Trying to close in on Adam Watson. That's an out-of-class battle. Watson a pro, McCauley an AM. By the way, there's about 5 cars between McCauley and Altry, who sits in 2nd place in the AM. So McCauley with a comfortable gap. But, you know, you see there's some parts of the circuit that have walls next to it. And then, like here, there's gravel traps. So it's almost can say it's a street course, because 90% of the circuit is used as some sort of roads, whether it be for access or something during the year. So not much groove is laid down until later on in the race.
No, that is a very great point to note, as Daniel McCauley has had, again, another great start and is looking to hold that AM category lead and do so to race up against the pros. So this looks like, for Daniel McCauley, another great day where he is not, quote-unquote, home alone at this moment in time. On the brakes then, in for turn number 12. Look at that aggressive curve by Watson. You've got to be so careful around here about the curves, because because there are a couple curbs out there. Turn 12's one of them, and then there's the chicane through at turn number 5 and 6 that effectively you got to make sure that you hit it square, otherwise you're going to be getting popped up in the air.
Exactly, and that is the key, is you need to make sure you got to hit those just right, because you don't want any sort of damage. You hit those enough, and chances are you're right for your left for. Oh, bye-bye by Macaulay. We're just talking about that. It's going to launch you, and that's what it did for Macaulay. Does he lose the AM lead? It looks like that. Yes, he does. Altria gets by. Roberts gets by, but he's able to stay on the podium for the AM class for now, because Jox Eva sitting there right behind him, less than a second.
Wow, that just goes to prove the point that there is always something that can make life incredibly difficult. We've got Louis Hesketh down in the lane. Harrison Crowther now looking to try and move through on Patrick Falconer. Gets aggressive on the brakes, tries to lean against it. There's just enough room for the pair of them for the right-left flick that comes along. And there's the move. And speaking of moves, Matthias Pirhanen losing out of place as Dennis Grabowski now gets back into P6. It's getting busy behind because Pirhanen now has to play gunner to Anders Myra at the moment, who wants to try and find a way through. Matthias up 1 at the moment, but it is clear that this race is devolving into a pack of 2 here and a pack of 2 there.
Oh, and that's going to be the name of the game for this 30-minute sprint race. Again, no pit stops, so everybody trying to scrap and fight for that position that they so desire. As we see one of them happen, that's Adam Watson trying to get around there, and indeed gets a position, but nonetheless, it's just, you got to be scrappy here. You know, you see those heavy braking zones, you can lean on somebody, but you really can't move them out of the way. You'll draw the ire of the stewards. But a lot of great racing so far, as we see Pirhanen trying to hold off Myra for that 7th spot. Myra really looking a lot more comfortable in that BMW than we've seen over the past couple of weeks.
The pass there on the likes of Andy Archer we saw back there, but we are seeing now that Altitude Frame do have the chance now with numbers to put themselves in the mix, and they are still a little bit down because if Docker's got pace today, but they still have a job and responsibility to do. They've got their own championships first and foremost to think about, but more importantly than that, defend the honor of the team's championship.
And that's going to be key, is to not only do you have to worry about the Drivers' Championship, but the Team Championship as well, with WSR Esports leading the pro category, as Pirhanen trying to do all he can to keep Myra behind him, but has to keep Grabowski with inside. Here's Joey Petrig in 17th spot, trying to catch up to Josh Boot. And that draft is going to be key, especially going into turn number 1. Look at the lean that Boot has on Petrig, trying to keep him higher and higher, as Boot will have the advantage, but still going to lean on one another, as Archer also going to try and get in on the action.
That's so clever from Josh Boot. It's what we call being a dominant driver on the straight. You just command the space and you have to work out what do you want to do through the section. If you leave too much room, he'll take all of it back, and that's why you cannot afford to give anything out there to drivers who will try and steal a yard here, steal a yard there on the straight, or open up their steering. Big break later, and that's so commanding into the corner. Well held up as well through the middle. Not much you can do if you're Josh Boot. Andy Archer now waits in the midst.
Let's see what he does going into turn number 10. Boot might have an answer. He's going to go around the outside. And, of course, the only other thing you can do is pinch, but going too high coming off of turn 9, that's going to make things a little difficult for Boot. He's going to try and pinch him to the apex, but not going to be able to get that position yet. So he's going to set up for the draft here coming off of turn number 12. And, of course, this is the corner you really want to get good momentum off of, because that's going to set you up right in the draft.
Yeah, and I think just behind there, it's on for the AM lead, I believe, there between Altria and co out there. So we got some big moves about to happen down into turn number 1. Here they go on the brakes, side by side, and it is Ben Altria in 20th, just about holding for a split second, and is going to lose out then that lead through 3 into turn number 4. Just enough clearance being found, but look at the switch back on the exit. Now they're too wide for the chicane, and Ultra has to lift out of it, and that will surely be a slowdown penalty.
And that's good news for Dan McCauley because he is still within striking distance. Here comes Faulkner around the outside. Let's see if McCauley's going to make a move. Look at Faulkner going to the inside. Now 3 wide coming off of the Holman straight. Holy cow, this is great dancing. Oh, a little wiggle there out of your early leader. Dan McCauley, points leader. Now they're side by side, almost going 3 wide, heading onto the oval, 4 wide.
And off goes the Mercedes, and it's somehow held by Ben Ultra after all that. Patrick Faulkner bringing himself into that battle massively there, and it creates a huge change-up for what those drivers were all expecting. Ultra somehow holds, and there's a spinner, and it's Josh Boot.
Not good news for Boot because he had such a good car. But I've got to say this, for those who say, IMS, not a fun track, show them this because this is absolutely fantastic racing all around. Let's see what happens. And yeah, Boot just the victim of aggression there as he gets tagged in that wonderful battle that we saw him early on.
Well, that's what happens when you just have to think about playing patient, and now you're starting to think about drivers and traffic. It's a short lap around here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and Alexander Davidson is a little bit hot under the collar. He looks around and seems James Boomy has refused to let go. They've got 2 seconds on the rest of the field, but the critical matter of fact is he's got 15 minutes to now defend against the championship leader. Every point now is going to be vital as we head towards halfway in this championship effort, which will be round 11 of 22 here in round 10. Now look how critical a little bit of slipstream is going to be. Takes that run, the gap a 10.5 as they cross the yard of bricks, and on the brakes, not enough of an angle to start throwing it down the inside.
And of course, 15 minutes for Boomy is a lifetime to defend against, as Davidson almost used the lap car as a back marker, and that's going to have to be a strategy play. We're going to see some slower race cars here in the next couple of minutes as everybody just taking that jump there through the switchback. But let's see what Boomy has for Davidson. Don't think he's close enough to make an assault. 1 to 2 car lengths, the gap going into, or I should say out of the Holman Boulevard straight. But nonetheless, I think Boomy's just going to sit there, bide his time, and wait for the right opportunity. Had a couple of them earlier on, but Boomy, he's got that championship lead he needs to preserve, and he really doesn't want to have to mess with getting dinged, because we saw here in the last race that he had a couple of points taken off for him for getting 7 incident points during the Enduro.
Yeah, and that was all done at the very beginning of the race when he was turned around and had to recover his way back through. He also doesn't want to have an issue today like we saw with Elliot Roberts having to escape to the grass in the battle for the AM category lead. So a lot going on, a big race on in all 3 categories for victory, because lest we forget that Eric Muxka and Michael Gray are split by 0.4 of a second at the moment. So that gives you even more promise to see what's going on. No changes between the 2 Mustangs as they work through 1, 2 and over towards turns 3 and 4 out on circuit. And this is the mark of these drivers. They hit every apex almost every time, and they're just waiting for someone to blink and just go a half a car width too wide.
And that's what it's going to have to take, because everybody is on their A game here as once again coming on to turn number 7. Still no dice, no quarter for Boomy. He's still too far away to make anything happen. And you see behind them, a lot of battles going on. I just saw that Vidal and Watson in a tight battle there for the 14th spot, as those two have been going neck and neck. There's Adam Watson, one of the drivers involved. And yeah, there we go. We see that Vidal's opened up a little bit of gap there for that 14th spot. Also further back, you've got the William Guthrie battle as he goes defensive heading into 7.
And he had to fight so hard last week to try and pick up victory. Guthrie works his way through, and his recovery looks to now be on a full level of continuation at this point. He knows how critical it will be to get by car after car after car. And one of the things we've been noting about the Aston Martin, where it's been weakest, it's been straight line speed, where it's been maybe a little bit down compared to others. So here, maybe the Aston Martin's got a little bit more of a benefit because of all the medium to low speed corners that you have around various elements of the track.
Yeah, that's the big key, is because this is a new version of the Aston Martin. A couple of weeks ago, we saw a lot of drivers go into it with the unknown, but now with these mix of high and slow speed corners, Aston's starting to get a little racy out here. So that's some good news for those drivers getting to feel it out. However, it's still, second half of the season. I think some of these drivers will figure it out, and then next season we'll probably see more and more Astons as everything progresses. But yeah, so far it's been a great track for these British cars.
Yep, so the advantages will be looking for any advantage that they can find over the course of this season, but we're now down under 10, well, we'll be heading towards 10 minutes to go here, 10 minutes and 40 seconds on the clock. Here's the brakes again into the very jutting left-hander at the end of the Holman Avenue, and then that left-right chicane. Used to be around here, Jeremy, a section of back-to-back 180-degree hairpins, and there's a little part of me that misses it.
Yeah, but then again, they unfortunately had to get rid of that tree there too, because that could have been interesting to say the least. But yeah, that would have been fun for some of these cars. However, it's still neat to see the S's, as we like to call it in some road courses, from 7 to 10, just make things a little bit more freeing, I should say, as these cars go around the circuit. It's still got about 10 minutes left to go, and Davidson holding off Boomy by about 0.3 of a second. You also got Toth, Grabowski, Perrin, and Myra sitting back there for that fifth battle. But really, wherever you look here,
wow,
spinner.
Macaulay again. It might look like that might be Macaulay running into trouble,
Fletcher,
as it will be. They're getting drive back up off the exit. Sorry, it's Drew Fletcher. It's the other Series 1 car that's gone round.
Yeah, and that's just going to be the name of the game for some of these drivers. You get in a battle and you either get too close to somebody, and there we go. Yeah, just a little bit of a touch. I'm not sure who that was. Probably was Elliot Roberts, or Jacques Eve, I should say, who made that touch. We'll get confirmation, but nonetheless, that's just going to happen because you're going in such a tight space.
There is Elliot Roberts, was cooking Racing Adventures, had the race lead for all of one corner in the AM category, and now trying to figure out, okay, can I go and get my place back and jump on up? He's lost a bit of ground to the likes there. You can see the car in front. They're having a really nice go of things at this moment in time. That, of course, being Daniel Macaulay. But you would look around and say that Elliot Roberts has driven a very good race 1. We'll be needing this race 2 to be in such a way that it is going to unlock a few more chances out there. But I would say we've seen some very good racing, and that is trouble because Martin Toth is heavily damaged.
Yeah, Martin Toth, your 5th place finisher, told come into the pits and fix your equipment. That gives Grabowski an easy pass into 5th place, and everybody else going to go up 1 as we see Toth fall down through the order. So the flashing probably led to something a little bit more, as now Toth into the pits.
It's very difficult to race against drivers like that, so I think if there has been any contact, consideration will be put into play to say, what can you do about it? It does mean now that Martin Toth's got a lot of work to do in race 2 as Tommy Vidal. Now, here we go, Vettel to the inside, and that is absolutely brilliant in terms of finding that move. It's definitely more hair than tortoise, that pass.
Really is. Of course, that gives Vidal the bottom step of the Pro-Am podium provisionally. We'll see how long that lasts, because we know how tough a competitor Samways is. Not too far behind them is Adam Watson, the interested spectator, 14th in the Pro class. By the way, we're going to hit battle for the AM lead here as Ben Altria has gotten around Patty Faulkner. and Macaulay 0.8 of a second behind Altria. You see that battle right there? That is your AM points leader. He's got his eyes set on Altria right now.
All three battles for championship race victory are split by under a second at the moment with 7 minutes to go. If that is not one of the best signs you can see for a brilliant World GT Championship, I don't know what is.
Now, this is absolutely fantastic that we're seeing the front runners battle each other instead of run away like a game of rabbit, as we're on board with Patrick Falconer as he watches this AM battle unfold in front of his windshield. It's going to be interesting to see if these two will go into battle here with about 6 minutes left, but we are hearing that Toth was indeed finally DQ'd for connection issues. So we'll see if he comes back for the 1 hour race here shortly, but a shame that Martin Toth having some connectivity issues.
Yeah, if it's enough of a distraction for the drivers, then they're not going to sit around and tolerate it. So fair play to the stewarding team on that front. So Falconer eyes up the AM battle that's there in front, gives them some race. And look at that, already a little pivot over to the right-hand side, wanting to stay out of the way on the main straight, not give any toe away. But lest we forget, it's still about half a second at the front of the field for between Davidson and Boomy. That gap now 0.8 between Muxka and Gray, and there are your leaders right now with 6 minutes to go. James Boomy, I think, will look at this, even if it's second and he doesn't have any angle to go and attack against Alexander Davidson. This has been a minimal damage style of race. You haven't lost too much in the way that you've driven about it, but critically, you've proven you've got similar, if not equal pace.
Yeah, second place in a 30-minute race with as much damage as we saw, surprisingly enough, actually is a pretty good win, a good point save, especially when your points have been cut in half to your championship rivals. But nonetheless, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here as we're watching Harrison Crowther try and close in on the Watson-Petrick battle here. We're looking at the nose of the number 30 as he tries to close in on Watson and Samways coming down the front straightaway.
Yep, so Harrison Crowther looks about, thinks this could be the move that puts me back to 14th place. A gain of 26, make that 27 on the brakes. They're gonna scrap. Contact between the two altitude frames, but ultimately, if you want to frame that, you put it in an art gallery. Very nice pass.
Yeah, plenty of nice art galleries in and around the Circle City metro area, and I think that could go at the front because that was an absolute textbook pass. And now we see if Crowther can catch up to Samways for 13th spot. Sansom was the driver we saw go into the pits. He's in and out in about 8.5 seconds. As now we see Petrick close in on Watson, and that is an interesting battle because that is indeed an in-class battle in the pro category.
Yep, so Joey Petrick knows that he'll love to get through, he'd love to jump up. Every single position that you find now is an extra point that you put in the bank for later. So there is that in mind. 3.5 minutes under. We now find ourselves with, and they're side by side again, as look at the way that Harrison Crowther just keeps slicing and dicing. Another one right now. DJ Khaled must be playing in his ears.
Well, it's either that or Queen with another one bites the dust. With every position that he makes, it's going to be interesting to see where he lands up, because now we're going to start thinking about the invert. Oh, nice little pop to the inside as a defense that Crowther has on Samways. Doesn't want him to get the draft, and so that's going to be good for one, not so good for the other, because it also gave Samways a chance to close in on Crowther. But you got turn 7 to think about as now Watson goes to the inside.
Well, there was always going to be a chance of I'll throw it down the inside if you leave me a door. That was a very big lead by Phil Samways, who's now got to go to the outside to get it done again. Clever there, trying to give a bit of toe to his teammate Watson to make sure he holds the defense going through, and he manages it. So that is a well-held defense as they go through into the final 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So there'll only be a couple laps left on the clock as they go by, and that's big troubles in front that are going to have to start tiptoeing around.
Yeah, there's some big troubles going on with about 2 minutes left. So we got about less than 2 laps to go as Samways tries to close in on Watson. Watson with a little bit of a jump. And look who's also joined the party. It's Petrig and soon to be Andy Archer in the 555. Josh Boot making his way up the field as well, getting around Roberts back there. But now the draft comes into play. Can Archer, we got somebody who's lost either a front or a rear clip there. We'll find out who it is shortly. But that's going to be big problems. It looks like it's going to be Archer.
Yeah, that's the McLaren back there that has got all sorts of worries with it. So it was certainly hanging on, and we saw there going through the grass was Archer. So that would pretty much say all you need to know. Side by side for Ram lead. They're going to go Mustang and Mustang. Daniel McCauley thought he threw it away at 10 minutes into this race, but Ben Altria still has every chance to defend. Now through 4 side by side. He's already seen it's gone wrong once. A big slide is going to mean he's going to have to back out of it. And Daniel McCauley back to the point.
Yeah, that wiggle actually killed all Altria's momentum heading into the switchback. And there goes McCauley. It's not only does he take the lead, he starts to extend it. Newman into the pits for repairs as we see the spin, and that's what caused it. Oh, what a hit.
A massive, massive hit into the barriers that tells you all you need to know. 1 lap left for Alexander Davidson and James Boomey. There was a huge slide there from Alexander. That opens the gap down to just a 1/4 of a second. It might open turn 4 as a chance as James Boomey throws one down the inside. Is there enough on that inside line to get it sorted? He gets a hip check. He can't quite get the angle, but now he needs to run on Holman Boulevard to get himself that launch. All the way to the white line goes number 55. Latest commitment as you can as they go side by side here in towards the next left. It's too deep from James Boomey. Alexander Davidson wards off the threat and only has a handful of corners to go to hold himself steady. James Boomey wanted a chance. He was gifted an opportunity, but he couldn't quite capitalize unless there's a Hail Mary throw down the inside here at this corner. The last great chance to get it done. Not gonna find it here at 12, but it has to be covered on the inside here for 13. 14 is the final corner here, and James Boomey needs a monstrous run to pick it up because the yard of bricks comes quick. Alexander Davidson will have a shadow to the line in the form of James Boomey, but advantage Alex as he wins this one in round 10.
That was a fantastic defense that we saw there as now we watch the 71 of Eric Muska with a commanding 8th place overall year win in the Pro-Am class. So great to see the number 71 up there. And look at this. After thinking he lost the lead, he got it back in style, comes around turn number 13 and into 14, opening up an even bigger lead. Have a day, Dan McCauley. He is your winner in the AM category for race number 1.
Well, if you keep stacking up wins like this, we're going to have to call him Big Mac at this stage. He's just having a wonderful season with win after win after win in the category. A lot of drivers fighting to the line. One of the Nomad cars there, side by side, looking to make that push. That was either Taylor Lane or Chris Chatterton there, making that late charge over towards it as the last of the cars now make their way through here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, knowing that they've got to go a little bit longer with a pit stop in the next round, round 11, which will be coming just on the other side of here, ladies and gentlemen. But what a day it is, and what will the number be on the reverse grid? It's been traditionally low so far this season, and it could be 24 that the number hit, and that's on the higher side. So that will give a lot of work to do. Alexander Davidson, your winner by 1.5 tenths of a second over James Boomey, with Ross McFarlane a little bit distant in third place. Michael Evdoka had to play rear gunner as he kept off the likes of Dennis Grabowski and Matthias Pirhinen from altitude frame, as Anders Meyer would take 7th ahead of Eric Muxka and Michael Gray, your first and second in the Pro-Am category. Arthur Thurtle would be your driver, who would round out the top 10. James Boomy with the fastest lap, as David Mendonca would finish 11th ahead of Tommy Vettel in 12th. Harrison Crowther, what a drive up the order from him in 13th, with Adam Watson and Phil Samways 14th and 15th. Joey Petrig and Andy Archer were 16th and 17th, ahead of Dan McCauley, who was your winner in your AM category, and Ben Ultra in 19th. Patrick Falconer, 39 seconds adrift, would round out your top 20. Jacques Eva, 21st, with Josh Boot 22nd. William Guthrie's recovery will put him on the front row. He'll be really excited about that, as Joe Coffin will have the pole heading into the next race coming along. And on the outside, 3 nomads that watched like 3 wise men: Chris Chatterton, Håkon Ida Lindmo, and Taylor Lane, hoping for 25 or full. You then got Drew Fletcher 28th, Dickie Simnor 29th, and Benjamin Gregory rounding out your top 30. It was 36 on the leading lap. Elliot Roberts and Nathan Healy 31st and 32nd, with Tom Griffiths and Adam Hedgecock then finding themselves finishes. So too Paul Smith and the gentleman John Roberts. Brian Loynes would be the first lap down, along with Louis Hesketh, Aidan Carter with that massive smash up that we saw on the front stretch, and then Colin Sansom. And over the page for the final few drivers, Joe Newman, who picked up the black and orange mechanical flag, and then Martin Toth out by the fact his connection was giving troubles, and Ben Bennyworth with an almighty smash up on the opening lap for Quartermass Motorsports. So that gives a big indication of where everybody, Jeremy, is going to be sitting. But, you know, you sit down, you say, what was so difficult about that race? There were abilities to pass, but they are limited around this track.
They are very limited around this track, and you really got to commit and really make sure that you have the pass down, because the exits, you can, as you saw, you can get fought back right away. Now, we saw the battle for the lead there going into turn number 7. The inside was caught off just nicely, and I thought, okay, you know what? We might have a good battle through the S's, but nonetheless, you go on the outside and you risk yourself to overshoot the corner, and I think that was the downfall of that race.
What a day in AM, though, for Daniel McCauley. It's not every day that you turn around, you spin, you lose the race lead, you fight your way back to the race lead with a couple minutes to go, and you take it. Is he just on a different level than the other amateurs?
Well, you got to make sure that Danny Sullivan's not in the car, because he's been the only one to successfully spin and win at the facility. But nonetheless, McCauley it is his year. We saw how good that Mustang was. You saw the spin. It's like, okay, you know what? Podium's good enough, but nonetheless able to claw his way through. That might be the move of the race and really the drive of the race.
Let's talk about some drivers who are going to profiteer from the big reverse grid that we've got. William Guthrie, I think, is the first name that comes to mind as someone who will be eyeing up victory or a very good run. So too Harrison Crowther. He made so many places quietly in that first race.
Well, also, you got to take a look at Josh Boot. If not for that spin in 14, I think he would have been more of a player up near the front. So that's going to be interesting to see how he can capitalize from third place. There's a lot of good drivers, too. You've got Petrig, who's going to be up near the front, and also Dan McCauley, Ben Altria. So it's going to be a very interesting second race here.
It certainly will do, and it'll be on the other side of this with us here at RaceSpotTV. The World GT Championship will now have round 11 of 22 lined up and ready in just a few moments' time as we get ourselves set for the big challenge that comes up next here in your World GT Championship.
them as well. What a move from the 48. Oh, look at this, and onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from the number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
And so welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the World GT Championship. Everybody knows that we are on for a fantastic second race here as we will amp up the time, say you've got a pit stop, and say we're going to reverse it by 24. It is Jake Sperry here on RaceSpotTV, along with Jeremy Scott, bringing you through all of this coverage and action. And Jeremy, you know, we are looking towards this race. You add double the time, you add a pit stop, and I think drivers are given more liberty to go out there and make those moves. But make no mistake, when you start switching drivers up front and rear, it gets chipper on the opening few laps.
It's going to get chipper. And here's what's interesting too. You have the pit entry, which is just in the middle of the outside of an apex of a corner, and the pit exit comes on, it's right there at turn 1. So we're going to see some interesting battles, and it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers handle the odd pit entry and exit. We don't normally see this around here. The closest I can think of is Spa, where the pit entry is right there coming off that last corner right there at the entry. So I'm going to be keen to see how some of these drivers handle their pit strategy and if the undercut really works.
And how many drivers do you feel would have taken the opportunity this season to run the iRacing Indy 6 hour to give themselves prep for this?
You would think a whole bunch, because really you're going to see some of the same competitors, so you want to see what everybody else is running. But, you know, who knows? It's going to be interesting to see who's taken notes from the Indy 6 hour last week.
It looks like, especially when it comes to pro racing action here, Jeremy, that it is a case of who is effectively a heavyweight boxing match between the two best out there, James Boomey and Alexander Davidson, every week. And it's a case of who's going to be looking around. You know, we're in the 6th week, so let's say we call this one round 6. And, you know, they are throwing body shot, body shot, body shot. But most of the rounds that we keep looking at here, you know, they're feathering tiny jabs against each other. They're not really showing much of their hand until they have to start throwing haymakers.
Yeah, it's been the Davidson Boomey show all season long, so no surprise that, you know, we'll see those two up at the front. And it's interesting to see how those two manage traffic with these inverts, because they're always involved. So I'm keen to see how these two will work together, or should I say just work to get up near the front. Because once one of them gets up at the front, I think the other's going to pit, and we're going to see some neat little pit strategy. But yeah, the Davidson Boomey show, if that's what you've tuned into, you're in for a treat here for the second race.
You really are. And you look around at this, and you know, this fantastic 16th Street and Georgetown Road circuit. It is one that has built up time immemorial. We come here every May for the iRacing Indy 500, for the Indianapolis 500 that comes along. And, you know, it's got so much history and legacy and tradition around it. There's a reason why this is one of the most sacred places in motorsport.
We'll take a look in real life. A couple days after the Indy 6 Hour that IMSA held, they actually tore up a part of the exit of turn 2. Well, not too far under that, there were still a layer of bricks underneath the pavement. They have been unearthed since the 50s. So this place just exudes all sorts of history. And if you haven't had the chance to go, I recommend a trip. It is absolutely fantastic. You always see something neat every time you go to the Brickyard.
Yeah, it is the lifeblood of Indianapolis as a city, top of the likes of the Colts, on top of the likes of so much amazing sport that goes along in that area. But it's also a circuit that's had a lot of road course revision over the years. This now, with the layout that they've got, brought into the developments of NASCAR wanting to run a road race around this circuit with that very fast flick chicane through 5 and 6.
You know, I actually have a neat story as well. We talk about that inside portion where Oval 1 is. You know, back in the day, I used to follow a lot of Grand Am, and I did some work with Grand Am. Well, I had a buddy who actually went down to the test, and originally they were going to use that little hairpin coming off instead of hanging that right. And really, it was too tight for the Daytona prototype, so that's why you see that hard right used for almost everybody but motorcycles when they show up. So a lot of neat history all throughout. And remember, that wasn't initially the first layout that was supposed to be. You got to think back to when they first opened the track. The four who owned the track, they envisioned having a road course mixed in with the circuit.
Well, they've got more than just a road course envisioned in this circuit. I mean, you just had a little look there along Holman Boulevard. You got there the wonderful Brickyard Crossing golf course, the turn of that golf course, holes 7 through to 10 over the oval, inside the oval, that comes back over the other side. A golf course that, believe it or not, Jeremy, did in fact see PGA professional play in the 1960s and early 70s, and saw the likes of Arnold Palmer and Gary Player pick up victories.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that this golf course also has so much history. And you also have, you know, not just auto races there. They've had air balloon races there. And think back to when Red Bull hosted air races. Holman Boulevard used to be a runway for those races that they held there. I think there was like 1 or 2, but still, so much has gone on in the history of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
It certainly has had a lot, including ownership changes now under the proud ownership of Penske at the moment, which will say a lot in terms of the history and legacy they've been able to put together. It is going to be one of the longest pit lanes that we see all season. I think that's worth talking about for a moment here, Jeremy. Because it's one of the longest pit lanes, it means there is a great chance that you get caught in traffic that you wouldn't do otherwise.
And that's saying something, because we just came off of Road America, which also has a really long pit road. But again, you got to stop and figure these pit lanes are a little bit longer because you've got to fit 40, at one time 43 stock cars on it. And of course, also part of it was because of F1, where they used the pit side garages. So yeah, you got to be careful in timing your pit stop, because one ill-timed pit stop could mean the end of your race. And with as tight as some of these points battles are, that could really throw a wrench in your championship.
It certainly can do, and we'll see these drivers on the last of their practice attempts here to get themselves up to speed with the conditions. A little bit hotter than what it was, so that's going to induce a little bit more understeer to a number of these drivers. And now, as they are looking to get themselves in the right frame of mind, knowing this is how aggressive we're going to be, my question is, how aggressive will the Pro-Ams be? Because I think the Pro-Ams indicate how lenient the Ams are and how aggressive the Pros are.
Well, those at the front, I think, are going to be really fighting tooth and nail to kind of get up to the front quickly. And I think that's what's going to bring up the aggression of the pros who are near the back, who want to get up near the front. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm kind of fearful for the first lap going into the first quarter, because we saw, a couple of spins, a couple of issues, but I think with some of these programs, they're going to see that open space heading into turn 1. And I think that's just going to get the better of them. So we'll see what happens. Now, will somebody end up using that runoff coming off of turn number 1? It's extremely possible. What am I talking about? Well, if you miss turn 1, you can go straight and hit a little shortcut that goes in between 1 and 2. It's a little bit longer, but turn 1, I'm going to be holding my breath for the first lap.
I'm going to be holding my breath, I think, for the entirety of the first lap and maybe a little bit of the second as well, as we will get ourselves over to our starting grid for racing action here in round 11 of the championship of 22, as we get ourselves ready for what will be coming up. A very important race that says this is the championship at halfway. The CCRC 136 will be on pole. That is Joe Coffin with William Guthrie alongside for company. Josh Boot and Jacques Eva will be on row 2 with Patrick Falconer and Ben Altria then in third. It is then Daniel McCauley, 4th position, who won in the race for AMS last time out, with Andy Archer and Joey Petrig 8th and 9th. Phil Samways rounding out your top 10. Adam Watson and Harrison Crowther will be 2 very tricky customers to deal with over the course of the race, as Tommy Vettel and David Mendonca having a good run in the Solpec Porsche there in 14th position. Arthur Thurtle and Michael Gray are 15th and 16th, ahead of Eric Muxka there in the Miamica MA70 car over there in 18th as well. Keep an eye on various drivers. Matthias Pihinen and Dennis Grabowski round out the top 20. Then you got your big 4, Ed Docker, McFarlane, Boomy and Davidson. How you pick your way through that, that's going to be difficult. The Nomads waiting behind: Chris Chatterton, Håkon Ida Lindmo and Taylor Lane, with Drew Fletcher and Dickie Simnor there in 29th. Benjamin Gregory will go from 30th. In 31st, it's Elliot Roberts with Nathan Healy in 32nd. Tom Griffiths and Adam Hedgecock there 33rd and 34th, with Paul Smith and John Roberts making up row 18. Brian Loynes and Louis Hesketh are 37th and 38th, with Aidan Carter, Colin Sansom and Ben Bennyworth making the 41. 2 not finding their way back here when it comes to racing. One of them, Martin Toth, that's an important name, missing. Look at that wind though, it has just picked up to 16 kilometers an hour, and so with a 31-degree track temperature, I think they're going to be looking around going, I'm going to look at the flags, whichever way they're blowing, I'm going to be worried about where I hit the brakes.
And that's what's great about this track. They're all over the place. You can kind of go into one, kind of see which way the flags are going. You know, if you can, you might be able to see it on top of the scoring pylon. So lots of places to see which way the wind's blowing here, and to see how stiff the wind's blowing as well, depending on how the flag is flying.
And they know that in these races, it's about finding a rhythm early, getting out of trouble early, and building gaps early. That's where you are. And look how aggressive those weaves are to get tyre temperature in. We've seen that over the last couple of seasons, the GT3 updates that have come in. It does take a couple laps to get tyres into full operating temperature. And we saw how it went horribly wrong back at the Algarve.
Yeah, got to get that tire temperature in, especially because you're going to have such a long run into turn number 1, and it's a tight run once you get out of the brakes past the pit wall. So it'll be interesting to see how some of these drivers are taking place. Coffin and Guthrie again on your front row. So you got an AM and a Pro-Am, and there's some very fast drivers in the not too distant rows there that are chomping at the bit to try and get up to the lead. So if we were freaking out at 4 wide throughout the road course portion, Jake, I think we're going to be freaking out at 5-6 wide going into turn 1.
I think there's panic stations pretty much everywhere. It's what is a narrow section of circuit sometimes around here. This is the widest part of it when you get both areas of the banking and the articulation back onto the road course circuit to get yourself into play as you get yourself ready through this section. But it's one of those peculiarities that you find here as the BMW M2 pace car moves down into pit lane. The pace once more finds itself in control by the AM category, who will look to try and move on and get quick, but it's an aggressive start again. The launch coming out of the final corner to get the giddy up compared to everybody else. Green flag in the air, and we're underway. Joe Coffin with a lovely start. William Guthrie will have a chance to challenge us. One spin in the back, in the very back as they go through. Guthrie's got the clearance though into turn 1. Josh Boot tries to follow in line. There's a bit of 3 wide in the middle as they now try and work their way through, and they all seem to manage.
So far so good, and like to see that as we watch here in the middle of the pack. Eva and Falcon are in a great battle for 4th place, but so far so good through turn number 4. Now on to the switchback. You're seeing Mendoza.
Oh, Eva!
And we've got one spinner.
Sharks Eva hard into the barriers there. He was dancing with Daniel McCauley, and one of the WSR cars in trouble as well, sliding about there. Who was that that's got caught up there trying to reverse back? That is disastrous off of the start of this race for one of them, and I couldn't quite work out which one it was. Now we got a Mercedes pointing the wrong way.
I think that was Evdaka that was involved in that incident. Thurtle, Archer, they're also involved in early races. Eva with the meatball, as now we're 2-3 wide coming onto the oval portion of the program once again, but really a little bit less mayhem than I anticipated, but still we haven't gotten through the first lap so far. Guthrie with a comfortable lead. Here comes your AM points leader, McCauley going around. He's in 5th place already.
Yeah, he's had a wonderful start to this one, but he runs a little bit wide, and there's trouble on the fronts they go through. Lights flashing for William Guthrie to say that is what we like to see. Getting a good lap sorted as they work themselves forward and say, look, that's one down in the books. On the brakes they go. I think that's Phil Samways down on the inside, making good progress. There's a lot of the altitude frame cars, and there is Dickie Simnor, 22nd, giving a big shove to one of the 3 Nomads.
Yeah, Simnor not happy with the way race 1 went, and he's looking pretty good so far as he's gone up 7 positions in 1 lap. As we take a look at the replay, and yeah, there goes Eva's hard hit into the wall coming off of turn 6.
Yeah, it happens just like that, and there's the other one. Towel unsettled over the curb there. Not sure how much contact there was, and so that creates a little bit of its own dramas, and there goes one of the WSR esports cars into trouble. We have just lost our timing tower a little bit there, so we weren't quite sure who it was, and there's the chain reaction. That's big, because you got to try and hold your brakes, and that's taken one of the altitude frame cars there, and that's one of the Porsches. I think that might have been Arthur Thurtle that could have been caught up there.
And Jake, I think we might have had another problem off of turn 6 during the live portion while we were going through all the incidents happening, because I did see somebody with some smoke there. I noticed the Pyrenees also falling back a lot. So we'll see if we can get a replay. I think that was it. Yeah, that was Pyrenees. Wow, nice save.
A great save, but look at how many places have been dropped for it. So that's a dramatic moment as they've gone by, and that opening lap has found itself then a huge amount of casualties, and into the second it's still biting as well. But critically, William Guthrie in control, Joe Koff in second, Josh Boot now in third. What starts by Adam Watson and Harrison Crowther up to 5th and 6th, and looking to make big progress early on here. Oh, but you're not going to get much there out of Adam Watson when that happens. So Harrison Crowther looks like it's going to be a little bit of a pickup.
Yeah, the Watson with the well off in turn number 6. Of course, you've got the racetrack, the street, and then a bunch of runoffs. You really have to be trying to go wide there. He almost was in the downtown at that point, as we see once again the battle that always seems to find itself, the WSR cars and James Boomey, as Boomey is the meat of the Davidson McFarland sandwich.
Yeah, so with those drivers keeping themselves alert, you don't want to be seeing them, or actually I think these drivers do want to see them scrapping, because if they're scrapping against each other, they're doing a lot less of chasing down everybody else early on. There's the look down the inside of Josh Boot, who overcooks it by a country mile, and Patrick Falconer works away by.
Quite surprised we haven't seen more of that, because, you know, it's such a deceiving break zone as we see Michael Gray closing in on the number 41. That's a battle for 15th, and that's Dennis Grabowski ahead of him. And Grabowski is Tommy Vidal in the Pro-Am class, so it's just a line full of GT3 cars coming around turns 4 and 5.
Yep, so Michael Gray seeing all of those drivers in front and not wanting to get involved, I would say, with any of them at this moment in time, because he's got the creme de la creme that is either A, breathing down his neck, or B, has already found its way past. So that is going to be a very tough position to put yourself in. As again, I believe that will be Ross McFarlane getting very close to the rear and trying to work his way through the blue tint then on the side, indicating which WSR IndyCar car is which at the moment, as they now try and figure out what they can do. Patrick Falconer, of course, up in that third place, will be happy, and we are seeing those changes around Anders Myra and co as well. So keep an eye out on them as they're going to fan 1, 2, 3. That's Tommy Vidal even, who was there going through, and Vettel will have to look around and see. It's the long road challenge to get on to the banking. It's Alexander Davidson even who's got through McFarlane, who's got through James Boomey, and now looking to get through. And this is where James Boomey could be very clever, force it 3 wide and get uber aggressive down into turn number 1. Will do so here. Davidson holds the outside packed and keeps his place.
And Myra with a little bit of a shove at the back of Boomey, but here's Boomey all over the back of Davidson for 16th place. We'll see how long that lasts. And actually, it's going to be Vidal, I should say, who was all over the back of Boomey going through turn number 1. Now they make their way down Holman Boulevard, the Holman Straight, named for the family that's really held ground of the ownership of IMS the longest as they work their way through 7. Yeah, I'm just surprised we made it 3 wide through turn number 13 there. I thought we were going to have a mess on our hands.
We could have very easily have done so. It can be dramatic, to say the least, when you see what this is going to be as a circuit and how tough it has been time and time again. Here comes another little attempt to try and get that launch down the inside. Easy move from the altitude frame machine that easily gets that jump and says, you know what, I'll get a place, and I'll get a place comfortably. You know how critical it's going to be, Jeremy, when you see these drivers looking to pick apart these moves. Adam Watson in 7th place for Altitude Esports by Sim Stickers, looking for the move on Dan McCauley, who's 2nd in class at the moment and just about gets the clearance. And look how busy it is in front with Crofer, Boot and Falconer.
And those are the drivers that we mentioned that could be a thorn in the side to Guthrie. Granted, Guthrie now with a 2.7 second advantage, so these guys all racing together has really made life easy for the Pro-Am and overall leader. Josh Boot, no surprise here. I mean, he's only lost 2 positions, but look at who he's got around him. Faulkner and Crowther, who are ahead of him, as Boot's going to look to the inside of Faulkner in that black number 98 Mustang. He's going to gain one of those positions back. Can he go for 2 around Coffin? Not going to make it happen just yet because Coffin's all over the back of Crowther. So this is going to be an interesting battle going into that 12, 13, 14 complex.
And it will mean that Crowther, who was 5th, is now 2nd out there in this race and really now trying to hunt down that race lead. He has been making places all day long, and I think everybody knows just how lightning fast Harrison Crowther's number 30 has been. The perfect opportunity. He's only got William Guthrie to now start hunting down. Daniel McCauley now sits and waits and hopes that he can add a little bit of flair to the party as they work themselves over the yard of bricks and over towards NASCAR, or what is IndyCar turn 4 normally. They will deviate just in front of that as they make the move, and on the brakes they go. There is no change in the order as they work themselves through. Getting busy in around that top 10 though, with the likes of Ben Altria at this moment in time. Anders Myra now moving up into that top 10 with that change of position. So Myra getting good progress done, and Ben is really having to work here because everybody now is going to want to start finding a way through. Mendonca's next.
Yeah, we saw a nice move that Grabowski made, and let's just give a hand to Mendonca. We didn't get a chance to say his name too much during that first race because so much is going on, but a 13th place running right now, not too bad. He's trying to hold off Mushka as he goes to the inside in turn number 7. They're side by side, neck and neck through the S's. 8, 9, and 10 come, and here's the thing, Mushka does not have the line through the 10-11 complex, but he's still going to try and muscle his way around.
Muxka's on the wrong side then, as Grabowski will pick up a comfortable one on that inside line. So take that as another little go by that you will take in the back pocket, and every place I think is going to be adding up then as they now work. Oh, that's a hefty little side moment there. I think that was Samways, not quite too sure who it was, but that's going to be down to pit surely, or a very awkward rejoin.
Yeah, you got to be very sensible with your rejoins here, especially in those wide open spaces. Oh, that's a nice move to the inside of Myra. Moves one up into the top 10. Dispatches of Phil Samways. Now sets himself up for the driver second in the AM class, Dan McCauley. Of course, Joe Coffin, your AM leader right now. And it's very interesting to say this with Harrison Crowther leading in pro in second place. William Guthrie with a healthy lead in the pro-am and overall category. But we're watching this battle for the bottom half of the top 10 between Myra Grabowski and Samways.
Yep, they're all there. They're all together. And there's the look from Mendonca around the outside of Ben Altria to try and get that move. And every position we keep talking about is another little notch. And there's your two of Davidson and Boomy happily sitting there and trying to pick up off the exits where they can. And they're going to push three wide onto the banking again. And James Boomy's trying to follow here in tow. He's looking for the best line in the house down the inside. And they both work a way through. So clever. Altria stuck to the outside. Nothing there. But that is so smart from the pair of them. Seeing the opportunity, having the bravery to go for it, and Eric Muxka, I believe, will now be starting to try and think about how I work my way back in.
And that's going to be key for Muska. Granted, he's a little bit further down in the Pro-Am category right now than he'd like to be, but still, you've got your very fast cars going through, now diving to the inside. That's going to be Davidson looking like, Muska looking like he wants to look to the inside for 15th place. He gets around Mendonca for the time being, but Mendonca has the line through turn number 2. Now Muska has that line back, and he's going to open up a little bit of a lead as we see McFarland try and get a nose there. He's going to get that position.
And Ross a little bit behind the 8 ball compared to Boomy and compared to his teammate Alexander Davidson. He's going to have to hurry and hustle to get through some of these drivers. Looks like Tommy Vettel with a slowdown penalty back there is going to have to drop a few places, and that really hurts you because you know you got to get it slowed and slowed and slowed. And look at it. It's very much a case of what happens when you're deciding to run 50 on the freeway when everyone else is running 90.
Yeah, now he's locked in the battle. Chatterton.
Elliot Roberts. Wow, what a big spin that is there.
Now we'll see if we can get a replay on that. And yeah, that's the thing. You get a big spin here. You really got to make sure. Wow, what happened there? Was it just a lockup of the brakes?
Either that or a tiny tap to the car in front. Nearly tagged someone else on the rejoin, one of the Prestanda Nomad cars. Oh, that could have been huge for Elliot Roberts there if it went even worse. And then there was a little bit more. This was the likes of Benjamin Gregory and co. looking like they had themselves trouble. And that is the scariest place to be, inside the final corner, pinned up against the barriers. Louis Hesketh going around, struggling so much today.
Yeah, Hesketh really not having a good day, but one would argue that Bennyworth having a worse day. I think if anybody wants this race to be over, it's going to be the 96 of Ben Bennyworth, as we're watching Patrick Faulkner try and close in on Joe Coffin, but hold off Joey Petrig as well. Petrig third in the pro class. Kind of neat to say that as we're watching him try and look to the inside. McCauley, though, getting really racy with a pro driver.
Yeah, he's got Anders Myra and Dennis Grabowski behind, but if you can get by Joey Petrig, he'll be quite happy. You got Faulkner and Joe Coffin. Oh, look at the move. Look at the move on Joey Petrig. Oh, McCauley going for some big attempts, and now Grabowski trying to throw it down the middle. Fanning out in formation. Grabowski on the inside line. Big search around the outside. McCauley's going to end up getting swarmed at this moment, as again Anders Myra can't find any lane to try and work his way through, but that could have been so dramatic. What a great move by Dennis Grabowski, taking a leaf out of the Boomy book.
I think that both Grabowski and McCauley went to play in the sand trap here between the two races, because that took some big stones to make those moves. Now we're 3 wide as Myra is going to try and go around the inside of McCauley. He's going to do it for the time being, but how much longer will that last?
Well, you'd see as well there, and I think this is really telling for Dan McCauley and how he wants to go and get about this. He's actually got damage there to that front left. You can see the exposed tire. Such a telling moment as far as...
Especially...
It's such a telling moment, and he's...
Especially... 2 long... 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 2 long...
Yeah, and now here's Anders Myra, who's got himself a chance now and figuring out what he can do. Macaulay, wrong side of the road, is going to see that Joey Petrick's there, and now they're going to start jumping on. It's rats on the ship here, and Alexander Davidson's going to pick one up here. Petrick finding himself in a position where he knows that he now has to try and see that it's everybody jumping by, and he takes a huge hit and into the wall. He's going to take one of the Mercedes along for trouble as well. A massive hit for Joey Petrick. He goes slow for a moment, and now he'll have to find himself back towing into the pit. A big disaster there for Joey Petrick. Wrong place, wrong time, huge disaster. So, as that is going on and we get things sorted out, that is a massive, massive change up that we have seen in terms of that. So you got to say that that is one of the biggest moments we have seen so far in this race. Let's take a listen in at some of the most amazing engine noises. Jeremy, simply put, a very crazy couple minutes.
Yeah, you know what? That happens here a lot. When one thing goes wrong, it seems like the rest of the track just goes crazy. So nonetheless, especially if you're coming off of turn number 14, that is one of the worst places that you absolutely want something to happen to you, because you've got drivers who are fully committed, full throttle going onto the straightaway, and you're just a sitting duck. We saw that happen in race 1 a couple of times. So good thing that everything was a-okay and we're just sim racing. We're not doing this here in real life.
No, very much true, and seeing how everybody is pushing about and getting 100% of everything moving forward, they know they can't afford to be throwing their races away, but when you got drivers being aggressive, trying to work out which way they've got to try and get by certain drivers, it's a tough old day, and Joe Coffin's going to find out that it's a tough old day, because here comes another altitude frame car looking to move past the red and black machine, and that is one easily dispatched of, making that past Dennis Grabowski now into your top 5.
Yeah, one has to wonder if this is going to be Dennis Grabowski's day, because he's doing quite well in the first third of this hour-long race. Of course, we have yet to do pit stops, but Grabowski is actually having a really good day for this second race of the days. He dispatches of Coffin, and now Faulkner and Myra, they're right behind. They want to do something to get around Joe Coffin.
They do, but I'd also want to keep my eye a little bit to the front of this field, because William Guthrie, who leads Pro-Am and overall at the moment, will have a pro behind in the form of Harrison Crowther. Here comes Anders Myra, now looking to try and pick this place up. This would be a move then to move up to 7th place if this pass could be done. 6th if he can get past Joe Coffin. On the brakes, Myra looks like he's going to pick up 1 as he gets that down the inside. Very accomplished. Won't quite get the 2nd just yet. There's the look on board from Faulkner. -3, but I want to focus on Guthrie and Crowther if we possibly can, because that gap looks like it's closing in aggressively.
Yeah, it really is. On our timing tower, it shows 1.1 seconds, but I think it's a little bit closer than that, as, yeah, indeed it is getting just a little bit closer, as Guthrie has about a 1 to 2 car length advantage over Harrison Crowther. We mentioned that Crowther might be one of those drivers to watch out for, and that Altitude Esports Mustang, I'll tell you what, Jake, it is looking nice and tidy. Looking at the lap times, Crowther running about 0.3 of a second faster than Guthrie as they work their way last time by. Going to be interesting to see if Guthrie has dropped the hammer. Crowther's up 10 spots. Oh, that almost was a switchback move.
It could have very easily been doing so for Harrison Crowther. Critically, for this season, he's running as a privateer, so even though he's got the colours on, he will be running and not scoring for the team's championship. Harrison Crowther, who has been making move here, move there, move here, move there, is now looking move everywhere and move up against William Guthrie, closing down. There's the yard markers on the left-hand side, 100 feet there as he makes the turn in for the corner and trying to close down second on second. They built themselves over 3 seconds worth of margin of buffer on Josh Boot. Little catch of the car there, and again going through the gears, trying to put power down there through 4.
Jake, something interesting to note. A couple drivers already have made their call into the pits. Paul Smith has decided he wants to cover the pits, as well as Phil Samways as he makes his way down the long pit straightaway for the first and only pit stop really of the day. Smith on his marks, Samway on his marks, but this battle for the lead absolutely fantastic between Guthrie and Crowther.
And now you are starting to think, well, if they are starting to make moves, if they are jumping through the order, and we've had ourselves a third of this race already, and that pit stop is in mind, we are expecting the majority of the field to pit in with about 20 minutes to go or slightly less. Falconer loses out to Boomy, side by side, but Harrison Crowther, he's got to go the long way around William Guthrie here, coming back onto the main straight once again. The grandstand's full here and packed at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but there will now be a launch over towards turn number 1. There's Paul Smith leaving the pit, but now into turn 1. William Guthrie doesn't fight it at all. Harrison Crowther, your new leader.
And that was an absolute great textbook move that Crowther made. Go high. Think you're going to take the pass going at the start of the course straightaway, I should say, but still it gives you an advantage to kind of suck in the driver who you're trying to catch up to, and that gave Crowther the chance to get the lead. And look at the gap he's already opened up. It's almost a half a second as they come down the straightaway there, as Crowther and the Altitude Esports Mustang with a great lead to take it overall. But Guthrie, he still wants to try and get that lead back.
Elliot Roberts in the pits. Michael Ed Docker after the spin is going to be down in the lane at the moment. So a lot of important changes being done. Adam Watson wanting the podium against Josh Boot. You've then got Grabowski, Myra, Davidson. They're all there, and they're all thinking about, well, how do we get the one-up on each other? And there's the look from Ross McFarlane trying to get up to 9th place and get by Patrick Falconer. He's done really well. I'd say he's done the best of the lot, navigating through the last 10 minutes or so, because he's not dropped that far off the back of James Boomy. Only a second and a half. Remember, he lost 3 seconds in half an hour in clean air.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem too, but nonetheless, give a day to McFarlane as he now gets around Faulkner, sets himself up for Boomy. Now it's going to be interesting to see when Boomy, Davidson, Myra, Grabowski, and even McFarlane all go into the pits. We see Myra falling back 1 into 7th with Davidson going around the number 20. So Boomy now starting to close in on Myra, but still McFarlane, he might be able to catch up to this the battle for 6th place a little bit faster than we all think.
And now you're starting to get the tougher characters to pass here. If you're Davidson, if you're Boomy, this is where you start finding quicksand, and those positions, they don't just go click, 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 click as you try and go by. It's not like you're surfing channels. It's a lot tougher. There's Eric Muxka then diving down the inside. Joe Coffin's going to lose out 11th now. Still there, your leader in Am, doing a great job to hold on at this stage. He's been doing, I think, this the right way. Just let the quicker guys go and run your own race.
And that's what you need to do. Let the quicker guys go. And if you run your own race, you know what? That sets yourself up.
It does set yourself up properly, and you certainly do get the sense that this is going to be one of those really aggressive races for many drivers. But if you take it calm here around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, you are not going to be running into too many troubles out there. Everybody thinking that they're looking for their fairy tale at this stage, and knowing that calm is of the essence as they run into all of these corners. We look a little bit further back to Aiden Carter. He's had a great run, plus 18, dealing with some of the Series 1 drivers, hitting the brakes, looking late, looking late, looking late. That Lamborghini Huracan trying to work hard for its passes.
And Carter trying to make improvements after a dismal first race where Carter, they spun off for the final corner and made contact and almost ended up in the grandstands.
Almost found the grandstands, but managed to keep out of trouble. Jacques Ziva into the pits, and the Italian colours there is going to start trying to make a move. Is the door just about open? It's half ajar. You can go around the outside, make a whole bit of work of it, but it's not going to work. It's going to be a case of hold yourself back, hold yourself steady, and know that that pass is just not there. So Aiden Carter throwing what he can at the wall, hoping that it's going to stick, but he knows how tough this battling is to just creep into the top 20. Well, speaking of which, in he comes and he will pit. Not to be outdone, David Mendonca will also find a pit lane. You start looking around and seeing who else is going to have to try and figure out who they are and where they need to be. You've got William Guthrie and Josh Boot second and third as things stands. The Pro-Ams in the top 10 along with Patrick Faulkner, and that is a speeding penalty for David Mendonca, who picks up dramas then as he goes. Another little look here against Josh Boot. This is Dennis Grabowski, who's looking to try and hunt down William Guthrie, hunt down Harrison Crowther for some places, and now trying to work away, get that 90-degree right sorted. You have to wait for the power to be put down, and then you can start attacking here. Josh Boot, how aggressive are you going to be on defense, heading over towards turn 12 and 13 and 14, or 11, 12, 13, ending the lap outright. For the moment, it's covered, but remember, that long front stretch is going to come along once again, and Adam Watson just behind now only has 0.6 of a second to the likes of Alexander Davidson. He's broken clear by 1.5 seconds over James Boomey. Here comes DG.
All he can to kind of boot Grabowski out of the way. Not going to make it happen. That draft and inside pass just way too much to overcome as Grabowski now 5 seconds to Harrison Crowther, his teammate, but about 4 seconds behind William Guthrie.
So it's time to hunt for Denis Grabowski, who represents Serbia here in iRacing. He will be trying to do what he can to now get that gap down and pick up a victory here today at Indianapolis. He knows how critical it is. Big send from Alexander Davidson against Adam Watson now, and this is going to have to be a tough hold if you want to get it done. Davidson can't get a clearance, tries again to the outside, this time just to pinch as they go through. Car change, very critical to note as well there for Watson between now and the end of this season, moving to the Macca.
Yeah, Watson not able to keep Davidson behind as now Davidson sets. Oh, is that a little bit of a push to the outside?
And he's going to try and throw it back down the inside, and there's a reason why he's fighting so hard. Look at what it's done. Hi, I'm James Boomey. I'm back.
Yeah, so now Boomey's going to go around Watson. Of course, they're kind of like teammates here as they go down the straightaway. So now Boomey sets his sights on Davidson as Watson says, here, you can have that sixth place. Go after that Mustang as they work their way around turn number 1. Boomey, the 6th, now has his sights set on his championship rival, Alexander Davidson, as Sansom is in the pits.
Yep, so Colin Sansom takes the choice, so too does Brian Loynes, making the call to move on into pit lane and get some service taken as we move very much towards the halfway stage. There's been a lot of patience from the quick drivers. They haven't been able to just leapfrog to the front and run away with things. It's not been that style of race, but Alexander Davidson still at 6.5 seconds off the race lead right now. I think still a threat for the win, but it's going to be all about how those critical pit laps are gonna take, basically, because they're about 10 minutes away from everybody jumped down, and it might be a case of who's been patient. I'll tell you someone who's not at the moment, Anders Myro. Look at that kicker tail as he caught the grass slightly on exit.
Well, I think a lot of these people in this group, they're all going to pit together. So, say, for example, Davidson comes into the pit, who's up 19 spots. I think you're going to see a whole bunch of other drivers take the call, as now we see Gregory going to the inside in the Aston Martin. It's almost there for 23rd spot, but Benjamin Gregory in the 113 trying to get into trying to get up one spot here as they go side by side heading into the oval.
Well, there's another place that tries to be gathered up, and Benjamin Gregory is desperate. He's looked 1, 2, 3 times for it, and now gets his pass down the inside, and now finally unlocks it. Ben Bennyworth with the best seat of those two Aston Martins, giving it what for and when you can, and that was just about what was necessary to make the pass. So great tenacity to find it. Myra goes again on Watson, looking BMW down the inside. The McLaren holds itself steady, gives a bit of door as he muscles for room through the left and right, manages it, and now watch out because there's Ross McFarlane.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't want to give too much space to McFarlane because he will take that position. And now McFarlane's closed in on Myra. Let's see what he does to turn number 12. Takes a look to the inside, not going to make anything happen too far away. One wrong move and you'll end up in the grass and race over if you end up with some sort of issue here. But still, Myra going to have to hold off the 127 once they get on the straightaway because McFarlane is well within drafting distance to make something happen. He tucks in under that rear wing of the BMW, heading across the yard of bricks. McFarlane up 13th places since the grid. Does he go up 14? Has another look and decides discretion is a better part of valor.
Michael Gray, the Pro-Am Championship leader, is down in the pits looking to make that stop, trying to figure out whether there is going to be any points to gain against someone like William Guthrie, who's going to be taking all those points he lost in race number 10 of the championship and gathering them back up for round 11 here at this point in time. Now here comes the launch from McFarlane as the likes of Alexander Davidson figures out, can he have a way with Josh Boot is the next driver. There's the launch down in from McFarlane, proving he is there and making things happy at this point in time. He is no American dad out there, but he's certainly proving that he's got full Scottish blood in terms of making those passes.
And that's what we talked about. One of our points, if you're going to make a deep pass like that, you better make sure you do so because that grass and those walls are so inviting here at the yard of bricks. As we see another great battle there with Boomy in the top 5. Now he closes in on Davidson. He wants to get back into that 4th spot. Here's Boot, though, drafting off of the number 28 down the long front straightaway. Boot, your 2nd place in Pro-Am, trying to get up to Boomy, your points leader in the pro class, and Boomy a little bit off the wall than we see some of the other drivers going through the front straightaway as Boo loses just a little bit of ground because he's got his sights set on Davidson.
Well, Alexander Davidson's had a shadow all race, and it's very much been James Boomy. It was exactly the same in the race earlier on. One of the Porsches having to dive out of the way. That's Colin Sansom there, who's just trying to keep himself out of trouble. But James Boomy has been nothing but the shadow of Alexander Davidson all race long, and it's been frustrating all night for Alexander Davidson because he's never been allowed a reprieve. The largest that gap's been has been a 1.5 seconds, and it's back down again. And these two are just under 6 off of the race lead. They've got Grabowski, key teammate here to James Boomy, William Guthrie and Harrison Crowther. Crowther, key teammate to the likes of James Boomy, and I think Josh Boot there having a massive blink moment there with 26:18 on the clock remaining. This might come down to who is the most aggressive in the pits. I think it might be one of those races where if you've been calm and you've been clever about it, you've been able to save a lap's worth of fuel, you might get a huge dividend at the end of the race.
We'll see what happens if these drivers have some sort of interesting pit strategy, and hopefully that's the only blink we see out of Josh Boot there, as he's having a great race regardless. But Boomy trying to hold station with Davidson. Looking at their lap times this past time by, they're about the same. Let me put it this way. Davidson 23.916, Boomy 23.913. So it's almost like looking at the man in the mirror around this last time by.
Oh, it is one of those moments where you know that they're the two best drivers, you know they're fighting hard, and you know that Ross McFarlane wants in on the action as he'll go to the outside. Watson having none of it, and he's the big flash of the lights from Ross McFarlane saying, come on now, you got to give me room.
Yeah, room is what you need around here because you get an elbow out and yeah, it's game over. You don't want to leave that front door cracked open because somebody's just going to jam a foot all the way through there as we see Tom Griffiths and Drew Fletcher into the pits. And this is one of those key sneaky areas to make some sort of pass. And this is going to be the time, Jake, where I think we're going to start to see drivers pick up their speed because we're going to see lots of drivers try and get that fast in lap so they can handle the overcut.
And you figure as well that every single point in the championship will matter after this race is concluded. We're at halfway in this championship. It'll be a countdown to the end of the season from that point onwards. So you start thinking about what did you do? You get your grade report cards out. It's midterm season.
Yeah, and here's the thing. With the off week, it's going to give these drivers and teams a chance to not only test, but kind of assess where they're at and where they need to be. Who has a better chance of getting the championship and how can we help them out? As we see McFarland try and do all he can to get around Watson. Gotta look to the inside. Ooh, nice dive going into turn number 7. They're side by side. Watson's gonna have the advantage and he shuts the front door, more like slams it on McFarland. McFarland, though, has to worry about Myra as they work their way coming out of turn number 10. Davidson, I should say, McFarland looking to the inside of Watson once again. Does he make the move? Look at Watson, though, closing off any opportunity to make a pass. He's saying, if you want to pass me on the outside of 12.
The big lumbering Mustang said, I've had enough. I'm being held up too much. And the first of the top 10 to die for the pits. I think that's a wise decision here by Ross McFarland. He realizes I'm losing too much time here.
Yeah, smart move. Get out of traffic, get that pit stop done, and make something happen. McFarland hitting the pits, and it is a long pit road as you see him just fall down positions. You take a look at that number blanking there on his windscreen, and that tells you how many positions he's fallen. He's right now 14th, 15th, even further.
Yeah, and it shows you that there are still a number of drivers who need to make their stops. Taylor Lane is another one of them. There's Adam Hedgecock at the moment, up into 20th position in the Altitude Frame Esports Mr. Hedge Calprint that is out there at the moment, and he'll certainly be looking right now to raise the stakes against Benjamin Gregory just in front, figure away by the Aston Martin in that AMG Mercedes Evo, looking to get all of the pace out of that one. And there's Phil Samways. What a great scrap this is turning into right now as he looks for a way by the Lamborghini, and this is going to be a huge battle along the front stretch. You simply just have to sit down, hope and pray as they're scrapping for second as well. Well, that'll be why William Guthrie's down in the pits, and there's the clearance that was so critically asked for at the best point in time to keep that steady and sorted. Well fought for. So, as they get themselves in with the final 21 minutes, we are going to be in full pit mode. Anders Myra in, Joe Coffin in, which leaves Ben Altria out as the leading amateur driver. Then in this field, Tommy Vedel is down in the pits too. So Josh Boot, leader now of your Pro-Am category. 3 seconds between Dennis Grabowski and Harrison Crowther. 4.2 for Alexander Davidson. Myra leaving the pits, and we'll find that that's a pretty decent pit stop there that has been put in and together. And there's the jump off the exit for William Guthrie. 13th place it will be off the exit, and effectively leader of those who have gone and made their stop. So that was a very important pit stop that needed to be done by William Guthrie, and now he's going to be sat down saying, right, I have got to sit down in, get into my go mode and do what I can as far as this goes. There's your leader, Harrison Crowther, with 2024 remaining.
And still plenty of time for something to happen in the pit cycle as we see Grabowski and Davidson yet to pit. But here's the thing. Everybody is close into one another to where they can see when somebody in the top three pits. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all works out here as we got 20 minutes left to go in this race.
Well, I think it's going to come down to how much does Dennis want it, how much does Harrison want it, how much does Alexander want it, and how much does James Boomey need the help of those in front of him to try and slow down the unstoppable 55 today. That's going to be where you're sitting down and saying, this is where I make my race, this is where it butters my toast, so to speak. But Harrison Crowther has driven simply faultlessly at the front of this field. Go get the places, go get the passes, and then just put very nice consistent laps in when you're at the front.
And that's the big thing too. We see how these inverts, they help out drivers. And right now, I think so far this season, Harrison Crowther has been the big beneficiary because he's been able to methodically work his way up to the front. And look, he's leading his teammate by about 3 seconds. And if Boomey can get around Davidson, well, heck, you've got an Altitude Esports 1, 2, 3 here in Indianapolis. And how cool would that be to see finally a sweep of a team other than WSR Esports? No offense to that, but I think it'd be kind of an interesting story here.
I think it would be a massive story as they are going to get themselves set up and ready for what is coming up in a grandstand of a finish. So they are all setting up for what could be aggressive. You can see there the oscillations over the curb every time that they go by and prove what they are worth. And now you look around and think, okay, that's how quick the level is going to be every single time. There's a bit of traffic in front. It's one of the Series 1 cars. You got to try and work through a traffic now because we've got drivers out of sequence here with pit stop cycles. It's going to be massive, and look at it. That's going to be a couple tenths of a second there that Harrison Crowther gets caught up. He knows that the cars behind her are going to run into it as well, but that's what makes this difficult because the cars that have already pitted are on the cusp of a lap down.
Exactly. And once the leaders pit, that's when we're going to start to see some of those cars that are one lap down make up those positions. Crowther does not answer that call, so I have a feeling that the 30 of Crowther is just going to make that call at the last possible second as Grabowski and Davidson still round out your top three. Pirinen makes up one position as we're watching more battles throughout the field as they work their way around turn number 2. That's Pirinen, as we mentioned, going around Michael Gray for 21st spot, and there's Joe Coffin sitting there. Coffin, ooh, a little bit of a wiggle there. Did he get a slowdown penalty?
Well, not once, but twice. I don't think it's a slowdown, but I think he was very uncomfortable going on there. Mutzke, Falconer, and Altria all hit the lane, so that will change them. That promotes the likes of Dickie Simnor and Chris Chatterton up into the top 10. So Pirinen gets by and gets an important place gain then on his way up the order, and we've been keeping an eye out on who's been doing what. 2.6 now is the gap at the front of the field, and it might just all jump together with pit stops pretty much knocking on the door, and it's not long left because remember they are stuck to a 75% fuel tank here.
So we'll see what happens here in the next couple of minutes. Here's Guthrie sitting up there in 10th spot, and William Guthrie with a great race. Oh, look to the inside. Here comes Hedgecock holding off the 20 of Anders Myra, as Myra, who's done the pit stops, already in. By the way, the highest placed driver with a pit stop done, William Guthrie in the 36. So your top 9 have not seen pit road. I take that back as the leader comes into the pits.
Harrison Crowther jumps ahead of everyone else, and there goes Ross McFarlane. This is a key driver to keep focus on. He's in 10th place. In fact, he has got himself ahead of a number of drivers out there. He's leapfrogged Boot. He's now looking to try and leapfrog Boot and Watson, who are also in the pits. Simnor in the pits too, and he's got by William Guthrie. That was the pass there. So he's the leader of those who haven't come in and made a stop. And Josh Boot's caught speeding.
That is not something that he had such a good race, and now Boot is going to have to serve a penalty. So he is on his marks, and he misses a pit stall. So it goes from bad to worse for the Atomic Esports Mercedes of Josh Boot.
He missed it, thought he missed it too far back, so he went forward and realized, no, you missed it too far forward. Come back, my friend. So that makes the changes there. Watson looking to leave the pits. He's behind Ross McFarlane. What a great decision there by Ross. He's still going to be 9 seconds off the race lead, but there is Watson. He'll come out behind Anders Meyer, now in 9th place overall. He's still got Håkon Ida Lindmo, Dennis Grabowski, Alexander Davidson, and James Boomey all to make stops. In comes Grabowski, in comes Davidson, out stays Boomey.
Oh, that is smart. So now Boomey's got to be 11 tenths to try and gap any sort of cut that he can get as your race leader. Now is James Boomey. Grabowski, Davidson. Grabowski gets a black flag as well.
This is unreal right now how many penalties are coming in, and this is from drivers trying to get a tiny advantage on pit lane, it looks like, to gain the advantage needed. Just at a 12-second stop for Davidson, and you'll see that Grabowski doesn't move, and Davidson did that last week, and he's going, yeah, I know what that feeling's like. That's one clear for me.
Oh, man, so many pit. I figured we would have the issues coming out of the pits, and I guess, once again, I was proven wrong, as now we see Grabowski falling down the order after that, those pit miscues. Boomey has to try and get a 42-second delta. Or faster than 42-second delta, because Crowther right now 42 seconds in the lead, with Davidson 43 seconds as McFarlane's out of the pits. If Boomey has a regular pit stop, and here he comes in, he's going to fall back into the top 5.
This is where the race is made up. We know how quick Harrison Crowther has been, and he's still holding on to a couple seconds out there at the front of this field. He knows how quick Davidson is behind. That's the direct pressure. The indirect one is what that guy can do. The championship leader, James Boomey, and he knows that Harrison Crowther is here to try and hunt him down. Now watch that time. 11.9 was the stop length for Alexander Davidson. Anything less than that, and James Boomey's on notice here as he gets going. 9.9 in the stop. Oh, that's a big, big call. How much fuel have you been saving, James? As he will make the slow trundle down the lane over towards turn 1. He's going to be challenging Harrison Crowther for this one, and it's going to be about how quickly those tires get up to temperature. He now waits for that green commitment cone. He's there at the moment. 1 second's the margin. He's not going to be clear of Harrison Crowther, but critically, he is going to be there. Look at it, side by side off the pit. It's going to be as close as you like, and Crowther lets him have it.
What a fantastic pit stop, pit strategy by Boomey, as now the teammate of Boomey lets him by and takes the lead with 12 minutes left to go. This is absolutely sensational.
And meanwhile, you got battles on the bottom of your screen as well as they continue on with their scraps, and that's going to be critical with Michael Gray. They're the Pro-Am in 3rd place overall. And through all of this, have we talked about the fact that Daniel McCauley is P9 as an AM?
That's absolutely fantastic. McCauley is having an absolute killer day, as he was up at the front, had the spin and win in race 1, race 2, 9th, and holding off Matthias Pirinen, of all people.
Matthias Pirinen is lightning fast, and I think if there are going to be license changes at halfway, Daniel McCauley is going to have to make his way to Pro-Am, because he is driving his cotton socks off every single race, and he is proving that he is lightning compared to everybody else, and is constantly a threat out there for the top 10. So McCauley finding himself in 9th, and with a pretty sizable gap over those he was challenging on early on in this race. But the battle is the front of the field right now, because your top 3 are split by 1.1 seconds. 1 goes through, 2 goes through, a 3rd will need to follow by John Roberts, and they do so. Harrison Crowther, he's going to have to go to his shoe rack and find his best blocking boots.
It's going to be interesting. Oh, look at that. You also have another altitude esports Mustang sitting there that could also play block. So this is going to be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of laps. Davidson, though, knocking on the door of second place. If he gets through, it's going to be interesting as Davidson throws it to the inside. Now he has one car that he wants, and that is your race leader, James Boomy. But Crowther, he's not going to make it easy. He's going to be like a fly all over a slice of bread as he tries to close in on Davidson to play a little bit more defense.
That was weird there in terms of the way that move was made, because Harrison Crowther, I wasn't expecting him to be so slow. It was almost like he half forgot a shift or something of that ilk to see Davidson chuck it down the inside like that. Michael Evdoka, I think, has just had his engine go boom on pit lane because he's not been running for a little while. But now at this stage, it's about Boomy and Davidson. Are they going to share the spoils 1 and 2, 1 and 2, and say it is parity between us today at halfway? Or will Alexander Davidson find the move in the final 10 minutes that James Boomy simply could not last race?
It's going to be interesting to see if Davidson closes in 24-4 last time by, 24-5 out of Boomy. Davidson with that 24-4. So we'll see what happens. These two have also traded fast laps of the race, so keep that in mind for later on. Bonus points are going to be key. We'll get the end of race result is look at Davidson. He's closing in with an Aston ahead to slow somebody down. Does Boomy dispatch of that Aston, or is Davidson going to use that as a pick?
Well, they're not going to dispatch of it, and so they're going to need drive off the exit here. Big flash of the lights, please get out my way, and gets the message at the 11th hour to move on through. This a circuit of hallowed legendary drivers, the likes of the AJ Foyts of the world, the likes, of course, of the Jim Clarks of the world, the likes of the Graham Hills. You start talking about what this has meant, the likes of the Helio Castro Neveses in the more modern times, the Lionheart that has been here and won so often, as well as you start thinking about what Alexander Davidson wants, what he wants to try and do to win this race with 8 minutes to go, and what he wants to try and send as a message with 2 weeks to stew on it.
Well, Davidson has been alongside Boomy all race long, so he knows where he's good and knows where he's not. But the difference this time is Boomy is dealing with clean air up front. So now Davidson has to relearn where he can make the pass. We've seen him try it in turn number 8 and through 9 several times. Let's see if he can try it again a little bit further away. He's going to try for the desperation move around the inside, but thinks better of it going into 7.
No, that looks to me there, Jeremy, like the first rule of trying to get a pass done. You get wide in the mirrors, you start threatening James Boomy by saying, I'm all over you, I'm on your left, I'm on your right. Where am I going to make this pass? You don't quite know. It's one of those where you sit down and go, I do not feel comfortable with that car behind me because I don't know where the next move's coming from.
Yeah, but at the same time, Boomy is too smart to have those games play with his head. But nonetheless, we haven't had a track. We've had so many great passing zones so far this season. Here comes Davidson all over the back of Boomy. You see Grabowski also working his way up through the field. Look at that defense that Boomy has. Goes to the inside, says if you want to pass, try it around the outside. He's going to leave, though, a car width wide going into turn number 1. Here comes Davidson looking to the inside. And once again, that's just another look.
Matthias Pearhinen up into 9th place past Dan McCauley, so that makes a good change. But right now, I think James Boomy says, I'd quite like to shake some draft if I can. Davidson's not going to play that game either. These two very experienced, and I don't think they'll make mistakes unless they have to. Almost jumping with a cut through the pair of them as they go through. And if they run and tangle into each other, lest we forget Harrison Crowther in this picture. He's only 2 seconds back, right up to the back. And one thing to remember about these Mustangs is that it's very difficult to judge where the front of the nose is, as here's Tommy Vettel.
Yeah, speaking of Mustangs, Vettel trying his best to get around the inside, and he does. Vettel takes the spot back, but, tries to go around Coffin, gets around Coffin. Vettel, he's going to get into 15th spot, but
that's the move
for the lead. Yeah.
And that's the move. Alexander Davidson is in the lead. That's the move. With just under 6 minutes to go, James Boomy has been caught.
That's something that we don't normally say here, but here's the thing. Do you want to be Boomy in this situation right now, or do you want to be Davidson with a handful of minutes left? And
you feel that's a slowdown?
Yeah, I feel that's a slowdown.
It's either that or it's the gamesmanship of, I want to be behind you going on to the final lap. We've got enough of a gap to work with. Let's go for it. William Guthrie losing out now in the top 5. That's Anders Myra through.
Yeah, so Myra, and actually, yeah, so it looks like it might be a slowdown because Boomy did get a little bit of a hit there, so we'll see if that is a slowdown, but I don't think it's going to affect Boomy too much. In fact, if I'm Davidson, I'm going to be fearful that Boomy's going to try something closer to the end of the race, as Myra up into 5th spot, trying to reel in Ross McFarland to jump up one more spot in the top 5.
Well, if he can, it's the 2nd and a half, and Ross McFarland, I think, has done very well over this race to get into 4th place. But again, he's going to be dropping points on these all-important critical rivals, and the more that he does that, the less likely he's going to challenge these two, who look like they've been A and A1 prime Wagyu beef at this stage of the season. Every single time, it's one of these two deciding, I want to be the best. They've been top 2 in pace. They've been top 2 on track practically the entire first half of the season, and at this point I'd say James Boomy wants to get himself back to the front. He couldn't get it done on the last lap in race 10. In race 11, with a little bit of cloud cover there on the horizon, there he will think, I want to get this one done and I want it now.
Well, if you put those two on the front page of the menu at St. Elmo's downtown, they would be the special of the night. It's been these two all season long. As Harrison Crowther loses just a little bit of a gap, there's the onboard on the bottom of James Boomy as he tries his best to stay in step with Davidson. We're going to probably come to 2 laps to go next time by, so still plenty of time for Boomy to make any sort of move. Playing just a little coy as he works through 7, 8, and 9.
Well, if he wants to be coy, he may as well play Go Fish, and he will wait for the last card in the deck before he flips it over and says, you're the one stuck chasing the ace. Big wiggle off the exit by Alexander Davidson. If you want to say there's pressure for these drivers, it's telling at the moment that they are pushing to 10 tenths, and they can't afford to drop a mistake or drop a wheel at any point on this track.
Yeah, one wrong move and it's going to be game over. Here's what's interesting as well. The 45 is the first car they're going to come across with that's going to be put down 1 lap. So that'll be interesting to see how Jock's Eva plays into it, and he dives off to the inside. So no harm, no foul. Eva with early race problems, but I've got to say this is the class of the field right here between Davidson and Boomy as we have less than 2 laps to go in this race.
It's the class of the championship, you have to say. These two just fight and fight and fight at this stage. It's like seeing twins, you would say at this point, Scrap, the way they're so close together, the way that they keep going about this business and knowing how critical it is. Which one would you rather be, in front or behind?
Oh, I'd want to be behind, especially coming into turn number 12 on the final lap, because then you have no chance of having to worry about too much of a defense unless somebody goes a little wide. Not saying that they would risk incident points for that, because if you're new to this series, you get bonus points for lack of incidents for fastest race lap, but you also get penalty points for every incident over 7 points. Davidson just a little slow coming off of turn number 12. Boomy's reeled them in. They're coming down the straightaway. They'll get the white flag this time by.
Oh, it's going to be close though, and this is key for James Boomy. Remember, he had a 9.9 second pit stop and he had the jump on it. This is going to be mighty tight by the time they get to the checkered flag to see whether this is going to be 1 lap or 2 laps to go. So James Boomy, who is tight on fuel, might have dropped that place to save fuel to have anything left to attack on the final lap of the race. So this is where you sit, that driver's eye view on the inside. Does he look for that pivot going in at 4? No. Again, he sits back. Again, he hopes he can wait. He just praise that he's got something left in the cards. But look at that drive from Alexander Davidson. Again, that gap extends out to just 0.3 of a second, and it doesn't offer one iota of a move. Moving in through the next left-hander. This is tough racing between them. 35 seconds left on the clock. Now they're going to be looking then out for turn number 9 and getting that drive on the exit and say, this is where I might be able to throw one more down on the board. James Boomy has been praying for an opportunity to get this one done, and he's been looking, and he has to have a bucket of oversteer to try and work this out. 10 seconds. Are they going to be too close to Barney as they head themselves to the line? You know what? 5, 4, checker flag is out, and that's going to be massive for Alexander Davidson on the double right at the halfway stage of the season. He says that's a power message. 2 weeks to sit on it, James.
Talk about strategy. There was Boomy just falling back too much. It's going to be interesting to find out what happens as William Guthrie comes across the line, wins in Pro-Am, and look at Dan McCauley. Have a day. Another strong Am win for the number 21 Series 1 Mustang.
And your top 3 or your top winners in category all within the top 10 again. Some brilliant racing all around here and proving once more just how fantastic this championship is turning into. Some great drives heading towards the end. A late look from one of the Nomad cars trying to push towards the line, and it looks like Elliot Roberts and Drew Fletcher are going to be close as well, heading towards the line too. But wonderful stuff here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a circuit that when you put it on paper, you don't think it's the most amazing for battling, but my have we had a great showcase of racing.
Oh, it's been absolutely fantastic, and we saw drivers that we don't normally see at the front. You know, take a look at Crowther. He led a good portion of the race. And McCauley, he used the track advantage to his advantage and really had a great day in the AMs. And I'm looking at the rest of the roster. You know, Mushko with a great top 10, but second in Pro-Am. This was an absolute fantastic doubleheader.
Alexander Davidson critically takes momentum coming out then of race 11. He does so ahead of James Boomy by 8/10 and Harrison Crowther. Great drive from him there into third. Ross McFarlane will take fourth and slowly fade back again as Anders Meyer would round out your top 5. Your winner in a Pro-Am being William Guthrie, but he'd only take 2 places on his nearest rival, Eric Muxka, with Adam Watson in the middle of that in 7th. Matthias Pitthinen would finish 9th, and Daniel McCauley absolutely freestyling on the Anfield. Look at them. There isn't a single one on the next page. He's 10th as Michael Gray is in 11th place. Patrick Faulkner and Aiden Carter 12th and 13th, with Dickie Simnor 14th and Tommy Vedel in P15. Phil Samways will take 16th, and the big key for Dennis Grabowski caught speeding on the gun. 17th place and 39 seconds back. That one being a huge missed opportunity. Chris Chatterton and Tom Griffiths, 18th and 19th, with Håkon Ida Lindmo for Nomad, rounding out your top 20. Ben Altria, a distant second today in the AM category in 21st, with Elliot Roberts and Drew Fletcher just behind. Joe Coffin and Brian Loynes would be 24th and 25th, ahead of Taylor Lane and Arthur Thurtle, who dropped back dramatically. Benjamin Gregory and Ben Bennyworth. Benjamin Gregory proving that he was second best Ben, behind Ben and just ahead of Ben, with Adam Hedgecock there rounding out your top 30. You then had Nathan Healy and Paul Smith were a lap down. Jacques Eva for Rhino Racing, the South African, 2 laps down with the gentleman John Roberts. Colin Sansom there is 2 laps down as well, a retiree for these drivers. Josh Boot, David Mendonca, Louis Hesketh, Michael Evdoka, Joey Petrig, and then one more over the page, Andy Archer, AA, well, needing an AA van to come out and see what went wrong with that car. But it is really a day today that everyone who has sat down, everyone who has believed that this has been one of the most fantastic starts to a championship, one of the most fantastic first halves, you say it's incredible. Jeremy Scott has wandered down pit lane. He's found himself with the Am man himself, Dan McCauley.
I've got to say this, Dan, you had an absolute spot-on banger 2 races. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, guys. it was hard to stay out of trouble around here because it's so tight and the overtaking opportunities are so limited. It was just kind of one of those pick your battles sort of meetings.
Well, and that's something that we were talking about during the show, is that you've got two quality passing zones and a third one where if you're in the right setup, you can make a good pass through there. So let's talk about that first race too, where you had that spin in turn one. How aggressive did you get back up towards the front near the end?
I'm not sure where some of that pace came from, to be honest. I was absolutely kicking myself after that. But when I managed to have a pretty good spin, if there is such a thing, and I didn't lose too much time, so I managed to get back on safely. I seen Elliot and Ben weren't too far ahead, and they looked like they were having a good battle, so it was sort of head down, consistent laps. Hope they come to me. They had a bit of a battle, some slowdowns, and yeah, they just kind of turned up in front of me, and I managed to make a nice move with Ben on the penultimate lap.
And of course, also a top 10 with an AM win in this hour-long race. Got a week off. Do you see a promotion in your future?
I hope not. I think the pace, I don't think I'm quick and consistent, but I think it's just the staying out of trouble that's getting the results. Me and Ben Altria talk all the time, and the pace in practice and the week up is pretty neck and neck. He just seems to get hit by everything and anyone that's going. So I think there's a long way yet. All it takes is one bad round and it will close straight up again.
Well, congratulations. Go get some rest because the next round is going to be quite interesting, to say the least.
Thanks, guys.
Wow. You see that from Dan McCauley, just how critical it is to keep yourself out of trouble and to get himself in the top 10 when his nearest competitor in AM was 21st position and Ben Altria. That tells you all you need to know about racing days today. But, as we said, it's 2 weeks to the Circuit Day 24 Ua du Mans. We have to say it is one of the longer circuits that you will find. It is going to be full bore as you go along those straights. And I think one of the most important ones that you go, I'd change a car for a bit of top speed.
Yeah, especially because you go back to back with the 24-hour du Mans circuit, and then we're going to Spa after that. So I think we're going to see some car changes here in this week off.
And what a week it will be. You can only catch it with us here on RaceSpotTV, including some of the most amazing sim racing action that'll be coming up later this week with the likes of British F4, for example, that'll be on the horizon. And of course, some more amazing sim racing with the return of the Porsche Challenge Great Britain on top of that. 2 brilliant races in the books then, and there are stories up and down that order. You start looking around at AM. Dan McCauley is just finding everything is coming up for him. We're going to have to start calling him Big Mac because it seems like he keeps on stacking up another after another win. Pro-Am has been a day where it's been anybody's really to sit on and say Eric Muxka's been consistent here, but the big key has been William Guthrie. He got himself back in line and got himself everything he wanted in that second race. But it is a story of 2 when they go back for it and on the double at the best you possibly could. Car 55 at the absolute zenith of power. Alexander Davidson has taken moral advantage when we head to Champagne Country in 2 weeks. We see you at the Circuit Day 24 Ua du Mans.